Good morning, ACC. I'm Tiffany, I'm the administrative assistant here at Action, and I have the honor today of introducing our guest speaker, Karen Wood. Karen is a licensed clinical social worker here in the Valley. She is a brain trainer and neurotherapist. Did I get that right?
You did. Nice work.
And she has spoke many times at our adoption and foster support group here at ACC. And as an adoptive family myself, I've had the privilege of hearing her work here in the Valley, and it's made a huge impact. I can't breathe, hold on. On my family. And I definitely see, as we are in this sermon series, A Father's Heart, her work is a true reflection of what's important to our Father. And so I'm really excited to hear her speak today. I know you will too, so please help me welcome Karen Wood. Thank you so much.
Good morning. I think we're going to have a good time introducing you to some things you may have never heard of and some things you may know a lot about. So I got the idea for this talk a few months ago. I helped one of my previous foster girls deliver a baby, which is not news in itself in foster care, but what was unusual about this one was she was a surrogate mother for a couple in China. So I went from the delivery room to the waiting room with this lady from China, and I went back and forth, helped deliver the baby. It was a pretty horrible birth. The medicine didn't work right, and so I brought the Chinese mother in to stand behind the curtain, and she had to hear the whole thing. And then when the baby was born, I brought that new mommy to meet her brand new baby, who is literally a little China doll. What an amazing thing. It's awe-inspiring anytime you see a birth. But to see a birth where there was such mothering involved and such sacrifice, I worked all day, didn't get any sleep all night, worked all day, and I just could have cared less because I was just floating on the chemicals of awe. And so I was thinking about that whole awe thing, and then a couple weeks later, one of my neighbors said, I went to a seminar and I thought of you the whole time. It was on the neurology of awe. She said, I didn't understand any of it, but I thought you would probably understand the whole thing. As a complete brain nerd, I probably would. So that got me thinking, I wonder what the brain does in awe. And then a couple days later, I met with Jason to talk about his sabbatical. And he started talking about the things that the Father's heart cares about. And I thought, ding, that's it. The Father's heart really cares and shows us all these ways to know how big he is. And our brain responds. But the problem is we have a lot of things that block that response. So when I started researching how could we do the neurology of awe in a talk, started looking a little bit more into what these seminars are like, which I'm going to find one and go to, but I haven't yet. But they're non-faith-based seminars, and it's people seeking to be put in awe of something far bigger than them to get these rushes. I mean, why would someone climb the Himalayas? Why would they do that? Because they want to get to the top and have that rush and that experience. So these seminars try to recreate that for people. And then I got researching it a little more, and I stumbled, literally, on this book I would highly recommend to you. It's called Awe. It's a very easy read. It's one of these books that will smack you around a little bit when you read it, by Paul Tripp. And he just has so many great things to say about how we can connect more with God and with awe. But as you flip through the book, what is missing? Those of you who know and love me? No brains. There's not one brain picture in here. That's how I always check out a book, is I open it and go, how many brains? So we're going to add the brain part today. And maybe I'll send this to Paul Tripp and say, psst, here's some neurology for you. So we are going to talk about what happens in the brain when we experience awe. We're going to look at a Bible passage that might give you a little different view on awe than you might more normally think of. And then we're going to take some time to look at the blocks of awe. So we're going to talk about all these B's. If you open your handout, we've got these B's we're going to talk about, the brain, Bible, and behavior. And then we're going to talk about a whole bunch of T's that are the blocks. So if you want to take notes, there they are. If you want to take a little more care about the brain, there it is. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So to start off with, let's do the next slide and talk about what awe actually is. There's all kinds of awe, but this is the one we're going to use for today. It's the emotion that we experience when there's a stimuli that is so vast and novel. It's just not in our normal repertoire of thinking. Our brain literally does not know what to do with this information. That's the kind of awe. And then it requires accommodation. We have to do something in our thinking system or our bodily system to accommodate what's happening with this awe. So I thought, what is the best picture I could put up there to show you kind of this mind-bogglingly awe thing that the Lord wants for us? So I thought, okay, I'll show you some pictures of this baby birth and show you these two mummies. And I thought, no, probably on Sunday morning. Probably not the best idea to show you birth pictures. I know you would love that. So I'm not going to show you that one. Then I thought, okay, let's start small and go big. So here's your molecule. Let's go into space. And here's the stratosphere. And Francis Chan already did that. So check out his awesome video. It's actually an interesting book I'm reading right now. This is Neurophenomenology of Awe and Wonder about Space. So that's a whole technical book, and it does have brains in it. Just so you know. It's a little too technical for me, but it sounds good. So that's a book on awe and wonder. Then I was thinking, hey, how about we do some big nature pictures where you could just sit here a minute and experience the big and the awesome of nature. So I thought I'd show you some pictures of what I felt like when I was on the Great Wall of China. Awe moment, not what I was looking for. Or when I skied down the Alps, I thought those would be, you're all used to those pictures. So it didn't quite capture what I wanted to say, so I found the picture, but you don't get to see it for a few minutes, sorry. The teaser of the day. So first what we're going to do is introduce you to this brain idea. So there's our brain. It's coming. There it is. You have it here. Couple things to introduce to you, because I think a lot of you look like new faces to me, so we're just going to do a little background work for a second. This little guy here, the amygdala, up there, there's two of them. You can see there's one on each side. Those are really important. How many of you know you have amygdalas? Quite a few of you know, and quite a few of you are about to have your life transformed by learning about your amygdalas. The amygdala is what chemically does in the brain fight, fright, and freeze. So who in here is going to confess to being a pretty highly reactive driver? There, back row, yes, highly reactive driver. That's the amygdala. It runs next door to that hippocampus. Think of hippo like a big hippopotamus. This is where all your big memories live. And those of us with memory and driving issues, we go right back to how upset we were the last time. And that's what our memories do to us. They bring us back. Now, it can happen in fear, or it can happen in awe. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But what we're after understanding today is there's this other brain part called your cingulate, that big red guy. He's not actually his own thing. The amygdalas, like your fingernails, are their own organs. If you do an autopsy, you could just pluck them out of the brain. Hippocampus, same thing, you could pull it out of there. The cingulate is actually the bottom of the bumpy. It's this wonderful part of the bumpy part of your brain. It wraps all around the limbic system, the inside of your brain. And it is how all the stuff gets to the top of your brain where you can do your best thinking. It's how neurons get up there. And what research is showing in awe is this part opens up. It's as if you've got this knot in your brain of all the things you're frustrated about, and when you get to experience awe of something, either beautiful or something you see the Lord doing, then that literally opens up all the channels to the top of your brain. And it's the anterior cingulate, so it's the front. So then you can make all those good decisions instead of all your not good decisions. A good way to think of it is you put your hand in a fist, like you're really, really mad at something, and then you go like this. It's really the invitation for the oxygen and the neurons and all those things to go up here and fire. It'll really tick your kids off, by the way, if they're really frustrated with you. Just go like this to yourself. Take a good breath. Shift your shoulders. And then they know it's going to be about them again. And so they're going to know you have your clear head again, but it's just a great thing to remind yourself to do. So just, just go like that once in a while. What this anterior cingulate does is it is the areas where we give attention to things. So being in awe allows us to give attention to things better. It's our cognitive control where we can actually think things through. When we stay this mad and this angry, we cannot think things through. This part wins. I used to say it trumps, but it's too complicated of a word now. So this part wins. Okay. That's all we're going to say. Okay? Get your, just breathe. And it also does social emotion. And so what they're learning is, that's so astounding to the scientists, is that when people experience awe, they then are better at relating to other people. And they are kinder, they are more gracious, they're more generous, they're more likely to be cooperative, and they're more likely to share their resources. That's what these seminars are about. If we can get to places where we experience awe more often, then our human relating, we get to do this relating more, but our human relating also gets to open up, because that internal brain and all of its memories don't get to win as often. Unfortunately, this is a little complicated in society right now. We have kids in school who wear t-shirts that say "Be kind," and they have to have whole school campaigns to remind kids to be kind to each other, because we live such fast lives that those amygdalas and the reactivities and the reactions are taking over. Research also shows that this awe, it leads people to shift their awareness and attention from day-to-day concerns toward a larger entity to diminish yourself. Read that again. It shifts your awareness and your attention from day-to-day concerns to a larger entity. And for those of faith, we know what that larger entity is. And then we diminish ourselves as an individual. It is one of the few emotions that can refigure our sense of time and immerse us in the present moment. What that hippocampus does, where all those memories are, if we are people of trauma, it will stop us from living now. Whereas when we get to experience awe and open up, we get to live now. So it's just a wonderful thing in trauma recovery to understand that this notion of trauma recovery and healing can come through awe, because it opens up the brain. So let's go to the Bible portion, and let's switch the slide to Psalm 27. And let's read that together. For those of you who have your Bible, open up to Psalm 27, or it's on your screen. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advanced against me to devour me, it is my enemies and foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then will I be confident. And hold on just a second. Let's just preface what's going on here. This is King David. He's on the run. He was on the run a lot, but he was on the run. And he was under terrible fear. Remember that amygdala? It operates off fight, fright, freeze, flight. And look what King David did to solve his fear. He knew that the Lord was going to take care of it for him. And I'll finish the rest. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek. Now, if you were under a war, under siege, if someone was trying to devour you, if you were on the run, what would be one thing you would want more than anything? I mean, I think I would want protection. I think I would want another army. I think I would call down fire and brimstone and ask the Lord to open up that crack and swallow them all. I mean, there's a lot of things I can think of that I would remember how I drive. So there'd be a lot of things I would ask for the Lord to do. But what he does is one thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. And here comes your awe part. To gaze on the beauty of the Lord and seek him in his temple. So here's David. He's on the run. He's got armies after him. He's lost his kingship. And he is asking for one thing, that he can sit in the house of the Lord and gaze upon his beauty. David knew this. He knew this awe thing. He just knew it. And he had to be stripped away of everything. And he was in danger of his very life, and yet he sought awe. Now remember, I told you I had the right picture for you today. So here's our good picture for today. Next slide. Oh, let's back up. Let's do this first. Perhaps nothing exposes the awe captured in my heart than trouble. That was David. Nothing reveals more than suffering. Not the awe picture you expected, and I'm not asking you to be in awe of my garage. But here's my point. On the left-hand side is all the stuff for my 30-year-old who doesn't have room in his house. Anybody have kids' stuff in their garage? That's the left, yes. The right-hand stuff is my wonderful husband's organization of our entertaining stuff. And in the middle is my crazy project that he told me I should not even try. But I found these chairs, and I thought if I just sand them a little bit, we will have 20 matching chairs for our dining room. Right now, you come to my house, you get the folding chair trick, which is not real nice when you're dressed up. The problem is this is not really wood, it's all paint, and it all has to be stripped away, and it takes at least 3 tries. Because first is their wood-like paint, and then there's one coat of white something icky. You got to get all that off. And then there's another white coat of something icky. So it takes about 5 hours of stripping to get the chair down to this. And then once I get to the wood part, that's the fun, sanding it all down and getting the stain on it. I'm not quite done with this one, and if you refinish furniture for a living, I apologize. It's just an example. Don't look too closely. But what this psalm is about is really that David was being stripped of everything he had to see awe. And sometimes that's what we have to go through, is to be completely stripped. Next slide. So there's a project on the left. This is us. This is Psalm 27 in wood furniture refinishing. You can see all the layers on that chair that have to go through to get down to the bare basics so it can be back to a thing of beauty. And a lot of you feel like you're at this point in your life, something is being stripped away. So what we want to do is say, hey, Lord, I'm up to being stripped away to see your awe. That's what we want to do. When I was in the middle of my garage and I was watching a YouTube by Paul Tripp on awe, and he mentioned his verses for awe, where Psalm 27, I just burst into tears. So I'm in the middle of this, sobbing, because Psalm 27 is my chapter. So here's the modern day version of Psalm 27. And this is why I was crying in my garage in the middle of all the remodeling. Our son was 16 when he was unexpectedly arrested and accused of shooting a bunch of racehorses right by our house. So December 31 of that year, Russell and I decided we were going to have a party anyway. We love New Year's parties. We were going to have one anyway. So I did a Karen, and I sent recipes to 6 couples and said, you get the recipe, all the stuff for this recipe, and you show up at 6 o'clock to start cooking your hors d'oeuvre. So when they come at 7. And I had this whole thing orchestrated for the whole evening. And everybody came. We were having such a good time. Everybody's cooking. People who didn't really know each other were all cooking together, having a great time. And then the lights go out. Well, when you live in trauma, it just takes one little thing before you turn into a puddle. So I went to the bathroom, had my puddle, but I knew Psalm 27, so I just started standing up, asking the Lord to give me the strength to finish the evening. And we just got out flashlights. We finished the evening, and right when we were about to serve dinner, the lights came back on. Yay. We're going to bring in this new year. Yay. And then just after the lights came on, the phone rings. And for those of you that live in trauma or have children in trauma, you know what a phone at 10 o'clock at night ringing does to your soul. It's like never good news. And it was someone from juvenile hall just giving us a courtesy call to say that there was a bomb threat in juvenile hall. So no visit tomorrow. And then they hang up. So I've already done one puddle for the evening, so I went in the bathroom and did another puddle. I mean, how am I going to finish entertaining these people when I've got my kid in a juvenile hall with a bomb threat in the middle of this huge storm, thunder and lightning crashing everywhere? That's why the lights went up. And so I pulled in Psalm 27 again, and I didn't know then what I know about the brain, but I stood up straight and started exhaling and went out, and we finished dinner and had a very good time. Took our time, saw in the new year. And then the next day the storm was still going and it was still crashing, and our visit was called off. But I said to my husband, I'm going there anyway. And he said, oh, no, you're not. And I said, yeah, that's what I said. And so I took my favorite old Bible, and I took my red blanket my mom made for me in high school, and I went to juvenile hall in the middle of the storm. Nobody else there, and I sat in front in the middle of the storm, wrapped in my red blanket, reading Psalm 27 over and over. I didn't know what else to do. I was about out of my mind in terror. And I just read it over and over and over again. And a guard would come out and say, you don't really need to sit here. And I'd say, oh, yes, I do. And then another guard would come out. Pretty soon the head of juvenile hall comes out. I knew her. We've had some other exchanges. And so then I felt this thing that awe does. I told her I was praying for everybody inside there and for each of her guards and for her. And I prayed with her while she was standing there. And she went back in. And I spent about 4 hours sitting outside of juvenile hall. And all I did was read Psalm 27. So when I heard that man who wrote the book Awe, that his passageway was Psalm 27, I got it. And what awe does is allow us, when we're being stripped away, it allows us to see the bigger of what God is doing. It opens up our viewing far beyond ourselves to see what God is doing. And a lot of you have layers and layers of trouble and trauma. So let's spend a few minutes going over what these trouble pieces are. So you have your bulletin, and there's the T's. Let's spend a little time on those. The T's are, this usually means time out. For this illustration, it means what are the things that stop us from having this wonderful relationship with God? These are the things that stop us. So let's spend a few minutes talking about those. The first one is tension. Next slide. He's already got it ready for me. You're awesome. There's that amygdala again. And there's that scale of 10. Remember how we said we have a habit of reaction and we go up there by habit. The driving's a great example. We automatically go to a real high number. It's called your set point. But the good news is this is so healable. It's all tissue. And so we're going to talk about a number of ways we can train our brain and train our memories to not kidnap us. This is where post-traumatic stress lives. It's the memory of trauma that will bring us up to these high numbers. And we can actually retrain our brain what number to respond in. So tension is one of the real big ones. We'll talk about the solution in just a minute. Another one is time. We just don't take the time. And the T under that is technology. These computers of ours that we hold in our hands are just awe destroyers. Not only do they not allow awe for the Lord to show up, they actually destroy brain tissue. Our 14-year-olds scan with swollen amygdalas now, just like psychopaths in prison used to in the 80s when we first started studying this. We have this anxious young generation growing up, and it's because this technology takes their time and gets their awe. My husband and I were in Colorado the last couple days. His sister graduated, and he took me out for a couple days of traveling, and we did this drive up this big hill lookout over Golden, and we were just in so much awe and amazement of how beautiful it was. The plateaus and the mountains and the Rockies and the snow, and there is a 4-year-old, and what is he doing? And the music, I went up there to just have some God time, and that video music just made me get a little spastic in my soul. Because that's all he was doing was, and all I wanted to do was go, I'm preaching a sermon on awe in 3 days. This is amazing. So So I walked a little further and I could still hear, and I thought, how sad. This little guy is on the top of a mountain looking at the Rockies, and he doesn't have a clue, not a clue. So that little amygdala is getting formed, and I bet when they took it away from him, there was a huge fit. I didn't stick around to see it, but I could pretty much tell there's going to be a huge fit there. So we've got the blocks of tension and time with technology. Then we've got travel. We just don't travel much anymore. I mean, if I would ask you, when's the last time you took 5 days just to go somewhere beautiful, just to say, hey, this is beautiful, what would you say? Don't answer it out loud. We just don't take the time anymore, and we devote so much of our lives to what our teenagers are doing that we just don't take time to travel. That's where we're going to see the vast, that's bigger than we can comprehend, is when we travel. The last T is trauma. Trauma changes the brain. It really changes the brain tissue. It changes how your hippocampus is formed. It changes what your amygdala does. It changes how your paths go like this. It just changes your brain tissue. So if you've been through trauma, cut yourself a break in your awe exploration. It's going to be a different journey because this pathway is different after you've been through trauma. It can heal, but it's a longer journey. So we're going to look at the solutions for these things, and one of the T's is not on here, but it's tiny. Start tiny. You're not going to get awe in all of its grandeur right away, but if you do things a step at a time, you'll get it. So the solution for tension, so you've got the block over here, and here comes the solution. So the solution for tension is take a breath. That amygdala keeps us all knotted up, and if you can just get your diaphragm filled up, get a good exhale going, do that a couple times a day, you will feel your tension self calming down. And then you may be able to see something of awe and beauty if you take that good breath. For time, the solution is take it. Take the time. Take the time to look for something beautiful. Just look around. There's a couple slides to show you. If you just start looking around, what you might see. Those are awe spots. These are awe spots I found in the Firestone bathroom on Blackstone and Herndon. I was getting ready to do this talk, and I was getting it in my mind, and I went to go to the bathroom, getting the tires fixed, next thing, and I just walked in there, and I had my awe moments in the bathroom at Firestone. So look around. Take the time to look around. I think I'll send this tape to the manager of Firestone and tell him he's at the end. Just stay tuned. But somebody knew about awe when they took these pictures. They were trying to capture this thing that is vaster than we can comprehend and have this need to accommodate. Next slide. So what we're after is when you have your time tension, take your time. That was an example of taking your time. Technology, turn it off. There's your T. Turn it off. Children in Britain are doing a study. They are losing IQ points permanently, 4 to 5, which is a lot on the IQ scale, because they are not getting sleep, because they're on alert all night long for that cell phone and their group messages. It's changing their brains. So turn that baby off and put it away. Put it in another room. Spend days without it. Jason asked me, Pastor, here, what he should do in his sabbatical. I said, take 5 days with no cell phone and your fishing pole. And just lose all track of time and see what your thinking can do. So that's a wonderful thing to do. So turn off the technology and turn on music. Music is just a great oxygen mover. That's why our worship is so wonderful. And when we do this last set of worship, it's a well-designed set. Look for your T words in it. And what we're going to do when we're done here is look for one of these that you're going to be able to grab to transform your life. And you'll be amazed how many of them are in that set. So turn off the technology, turn on music. For travel, your T is hit the road. Take a trip. Plan it. My husband was here for service, and he planned 2 days of travel for me where I didn't have to think about a thing. I just walked, and he took me there. Now, he's a little directionally challenged, so it took us a lot longer to get to the capital of Denver than it needed to, but I was just like, oh, well, we'll get there when we get there. And we had a wonderful time and saw a lot of awe spots. So the block is travel, and the solution is take the time to travel. Just plan your trip. We are one of the few spots in the nation where you can get to several national parks and the beach within 2 to 3 hours. So take advantage of that. And then the last T is trauma. If you have been through a lot of trauma and it has changed the shape of your brain, find someone to talk to. Trauma isolates. Find someone to talk to. And if you do not know that the Lord is your Savior and loves you, then find one of us to talk to, because that is the real solution to trauma, is knowing that God loves you and this thing is bigger than you. That's what wonder is about. It's bigger than us. So take a minute, look at, if you didn't write it out, think in your head. Those things that you might be able to circle, or circle in your mind, that you can start doing more, able to see awe. So in conclusion, we learned today more about the brain. We learned that amygdala does the fight, fright, and freeze chemicals, and it's healable if we have big reactions. We learned that hippocampus stores our memory, and it can change and heal. And we learned that cingulate, poof, especially the front, is where awe happens. Because when you see something so beautiful, how often do you just drop your mouth and open your eyes? It's just more than you can fathom. That's literally that all opening up. And we've studied the Psalm. King David knew all this trouble, and he just wanted to see the face of God. He knew that awe. So your Heavenly Father created you to be awe. He made that wonderful brain of yours. And he knows that his heart wants is for you to see him more in awe. So take some time today and see some things. I would even go out on a theological limb and say, I think he's in awe of you. And when you get something, I think he is in awe of you. So take some time. He created your brain tissue. Go grab some awe today. Thank you.